Estelle, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Welly, I'm very excited to be here, and I'm super excited because we sort of briefly, met last week at the launch, didn't we, at the book launch? But I haven't had the pleasure of sitting down with you, so I'm really excited for this, for our time together.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Thank you as well for your time and for this beautiful book, Manifest Your True Essence, that is out now, everybody. But we are going to dive into it today. Before we get started, I guess I would love for you to introduce yourself in your own words because I always find it more powerful. What do you do? Because what you do is so special and different. What do you do? How do you introduce yourself to people?
Welly, it's such a difficult one to actually encapsulate what I do. And interestingly, with this book, I had to kind of get a grip on thinking about what I do. So I would say it's where a healing merges with psychology, or a sort of therapeutic framework, but with a little bit of magic thrown in, and coaching. I mean, it's very bespoke. It's a sort of each session, everyone that comes to see me, it's a really bespoke session, and I run through what it looks like actually in the book. When people come to see me, I get downloads for people around their blocks and what's holding them back at any given time, at any given moment. So, our blocks can be different at different times in our lives, but often there are some big blocks that we're shifting in order to manifest more of our joy and create more and be more, express more of who we are. So it's kind of, in one sentence, I've summed it up as I am the heart whisperer, because really this is a journey into the heart. This is my work, is heart work. And I kind of bring all of those different healing modalities really into one place, but really centrally into the heart. And we go through the heart and the power of the heart to uncover really the truth of who we are, and to go back home to ourselves.
Which I guess you kind of answering my first question, because so many of us talk about manifestation or think about manifestation in a more, I guess, surface way. Not that those things are wrong, and I'm thinking, setting a goals and visualizing it, doing a vision board, but with your book and your work, it is all about manifesting from our true self, from our
Mhm.
essence.
Mm.
And I guess my very first question would be, what does it truly mean to manifest from your essence? What does that mean, really, truly?
Well, as you said that, I've kind of got goosebumps. It's sort of, I can feel the energy of that already when you're sort of, even when you're saying that, Welly, I feel your essence actually. So I feel part of you in that, as opposed to when we are thinking manifestation. So the idea of what the thinking mind, our conscious thoughts, all day long about what it is that we want to manifest. So remember, we know now that our conscious mind is about, between, whether, what science you're believing in, but it's around sort of, 97% of the mind is unconscious, and the rest is conscious. So if you imagine that, and we've seen maybe images of the iceberg, and there's a tip of the iceberg, and under the ocean is the iceberg, and under the ocean are all of our unconscious beliefs about who we are, and they are limiting beliefs. So we've heard that, that's been talked about quite a lot. Our thoughts create our reality, okay, and our thoughts, if we, there's the big rewire of the thoughts, is so necessary, because up here we can be like vision boarding, and I want this and I want that and I want, and actually, but the unconscious mind is saying you don't deserve, you're not enough, why you, no one cares about you or what you think you're bringing to the world, or or whatever it is that no one will love you, so if we're thinking I really want to manifest, the love of my life, I want to, it's actually that thing of how you're not actually lovable. So our unconscious thoughts are speaking to us all of the time, and we need to go in and we need to really process and reprogram those unconscious thoughts. Now, traditionally, what we've done, in modern day society, when it comes to sort of well-being and psychology and mental health, is we have programmed through the conscious mind. And I'm not saying, as completely in agreement with you, Welly, on this, that it's not it's a positive thing, to have positive thoughts and to wake up and think, I'm visioning this, and I want to put this on my vision board, and I'm putting this on my screensaver, is a good thing. It's a great thing. It's a real step, and it's fantastic, and it will deliver results too. This book, though, is really the next step in manifestation. And what it's about really is it's not really only about manifesting these things that we think we want that will make us happy. It's actually about meeting ourselves. And when we meet ourselves more, what brings us happiness is sometimes, actually will not be what we think it was. Number one. Number two, we discover that so much of our joy is actually already, we have all the answers. We are such incredible fountains of beauty, really, and abundance. And so when we start to manifest from our true essence, we get to know ourselves more, and we also get to know more of what it is we really want to manifest, right? So this idea of, I want to manifest a new car, I want to manifest a new relationship, but it's like, when we get to know ourselves more, we'll learn more about the sort of person we really want to manifest. Not just a relationship, but a relationship that mirrors my own love for myself, right? I can't get that love for myself by manifesting a relationship. That relationship won't make me love myself more. What happens is, when we step in and I love myself more, and I'm really in touch with my true essence, then, we are mirrored in the universe. The universe speaks to us and will bring us more of what it is we believe about ourselves.
Wow, beautiful. It just makes me think of how, this last part you just said, when you talked about the relationship, how we can sometimes manifest things that are not us because we manifested that from our ego place. I know that is something I've done a lot, because a part of my adult upbringing as a professional dancer working in the entertainment industry, it's very much about the ego, right? Which can be helpful in that
Yes,
industry because this is
yes,
what we do, be in the front and show yourselves. But moving into my second career as a well-being practitioner, Pilates, nutrition, coaching, I know there have been times where I fully manifested from my ego. And then I looked back and I was like, oh shit,
mm,
I really hate this. I
mm,
never wanted this because I didn't connect, and for the longest time, if I'm honest with you, I didn't connect with myself. I knew who was down there, but it just felt really scary.
yeah,
And the thought of being vulnerable would just make me, oh, so I didn't do that for the longest time. And I manifested some like incredible things, honestly, but it was always surface light.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yes.
for my community listening, I would love to get your wisdom on this. How do you know that? First of all, have you ever manifesting something that wasn't aligned with your true essence, and how did you realize it? And I guess, how do you prevent that from happening? Like, really knowing that I am manifesting right now from my soul, from a soul perspective. This is not just my ego doing the talk.
Right. Really great question, Welly. And I feel like we're in this incarnation, our ego is part of our incarnation. And our ego is a really great thing. The ego gets a really hard rap, like the heart does and like love does. It's like
Mm.
the ego this and the ego that. What it is about our egos help us, really operate in this dimension, right? And a healthy ego, is good, right? So it's often, our egos are wounded though, and that's what happens in our childhood. So our ideas of ourselves are not actually healthy, and so it's often a wounded ego that's manifesting. If I have more of that, it's going to make me happy. If I feel that hole, it will make me feel good about myself. That type of relationship, if I find that person will answer all my problems. And this is obviously a separation from self. And what I say to people is, you can run but you can't hide. So remember, this lifetime is about being that moment that you said, it was scary and I just didn't know really what was down there and I wasn't really sure, but it's actually such a joy and a gift and an adventure. And really, that's what I wanted to bring in with the book, the True Essence Process. Is this is an adventure, and I always say it to all of my practitioners, anyone who comes into a workshop, remember the adventure of life, okay?
Mm,
And remember that how brief our lifetimes are. We're so, if anyone has experienced someone passing away, and I really feel for you if you have, but actually, one of the things that death does do is it brings us home to this, the reality of how short life is. We kind of
mm,
really touch into that. And my feeling is that sort of reminding of, this is a short life. So you've got nowhere to go but inside yourself, and get inside yourself, because that is your gold. It's a minefield. Like it's a mine. You're mining. It's not a minefield. It's actually you're mining for your gold. And there's so much beauty in there,
mm,
because when the world gets to see you for who you truly are, with all of it, the many facets and the many sides of who you are, and you are accepting of who you are, then the world, is a happier and more beautiful place with you in
mm,
it. And so this idea of the ego, so what we want to be thinking about is, am I manifesting from the ego or from my soul energy? Which is really what the true essence is. Our true essence is our soul energy. And one of the things that will help you with that is knowing the difference, right? So knowing your ego more, okay,
mm,
understanding the impulses of your ego, which is what, when we expand our consciousness, that's what we start to do, right? We start to move beyond the ego. So we understand that, oh wow, okay, that's a part of my wounded ego. My teenage self is really wants to be, in the limelight, and my teenage self wants to drive a Ferrari, and my teenage self, or my like my the part of me that was told as a child that I wouldn't amount to anything, like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to amount to it, you know and it's like, and it's not a bad thing to want to amount to do these things and push back against this energy. But there'll be a moment in life, there'll be a moment in time, when everything, the dust settles, and we're kind of left, we're still with ourselves.
mm,
And really, you know, if you were told that you weren't enough as a child, or the circumstances led you to believe that about yourself, then you will be left with that belief system. And there's
mm,
a moment when life invites us home back to ourselves. And really, the way to know the difference is through the heart. So
mm,
if you can start a very simple heart exercise every day, your heart will tell you the truth. Your heart is completely engaged with your truth and your true essence.
mm. Wow, incredible. It is so true about the wounded ego. I think I don't think we talk about it enough, or I don't hear about it enough, in this, the spiritual, the self-development world. But the wounded ego will definitely have you want or do things that are not you true essence, or are not you. I personally know that I crave approval. I
Yeah.
like approval because it's something that my dad was very much like, if you do well, it's cool. If you have the best mark, if you earn good money, you'll be my favorite. And that, again, has really supported me, I guess, in a way, for working really hard until it didn't anymore, until it broke me. And I had to get back to myself and say, okay, what do I actually want? Like, in this whole thing, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Um, it's a journey, it's a life journey. Mine really went deep when I became a mother, but it
Yeah.
definitely is a life journey. And like you said, I think it's a beautiful one. It's a self-discovery journey. And I definitely do invite everybody to take it. When it comes to those hard exercises, so I'm not halfway through yet because I've literally started this 5 days ago when I got it at the launch, at the book launch. But I know there are many, many exercises here. What are the types of exercises some of my listeners can look forward to in this book, especially when it comes to the hearts? Because again, I don't want to project myself to everybody, but I do know from experience being a coach myself that a heart opening is not as easy to some of us that it can be to others. Are already beautifully open. Some of us are just like, we have a lot of protective layers, and it can be really, really hard to get in there. What can we expect in terms of exercises in there, like to guide us through that process?
Yeah, remember, you're not alone when you feel the barricades around the heart, and I talk about it a lot in the book. It's what the book
Mm,
is about, it's what the work is about for us, for humanity at this time. I've written a line that the greatest, our revolution, our humanity's next revolution, will be a revolution of the heart, because it's a real way. It's our soul activism, really. Is
mm,
how do we really engage with these times,
mm,
and as practitioners, and your beautiful audience here, who are all looking to, grow themselves, and change people's lives, and
mm,
be part of the healing that the world needs right now.
mhm,
And I will say that, our soul activism is to be live heart-led lives,
mm,
because our hearts, the I've written a lot of the science in there. The science is caught up now with the what we know as healers and mystics, and prophets have been speaking about for generations and millennia, that the heart is the way back home. Buddha says it.
mm,
Look to the heart. And it's in the Bible. It's in every great work, and all indigenous traditions too. We are not going to return to wholeness through our minds. Remember, the mind is a construct of the lifetime alone, just like the
mm,
ego. It is a
mhm,
construct. And that's what the heart will show us. It will show us, and it gives us some real awareness around our egos. It gives us awareness around our thoughts. It gives us
mhm,
awareness around our limiting belief systems.
mm,
And it helps us move into the more than. And the more than is that soul energy. And
mm,
so, don't worry if you feel like you've got those walls up. I mean, it's what I do all day long, right? My practice is built
mm,
on helping us move through and dissolve and melt those walls, because when you spoke about the fear of vulnerability, our fierce grace is in our vulnerability. And that's one of the things that it's such an inspiration to see people drop into their vulnerability and start to find their voices, and start to say, wow, that really hurt me when you said that, or I
mm,
don't like this, or I don't, and this book takes you through exercises, really, on very gentle, step by step,
yeah,
different meditations, different visualizations, different journal prompts, ways to be in nature, ways to, start, grow, or begin relationships with your family in the light in a really gentle way, feel
mm,
into all of those feelings that, as empaths, anyone listening to this podcast will be, is looking to help. And so when you're looking to help, that's part of your mission on the planet.
mm,
And you're here for a reason. And the world needs you right now. Like, we need you to be fully activated with all
yeah,
parts of yourself, working and online, really.
mm,
And so this book will, yeah, it will give you little different tweaks, something you can bring in before a session, something you can do on the tube, on a school run,
yeah,
little meditations, all through the heart, and the very simple. Again, because this idea that getting through the blocks is going to be tough, and I say it is a practice, and it is your birthright.
mm. Amen to that. Amen to that. Yep. I'm like, it is your birthright. That's
It's your
right.
birthright.
Mm,
So the birthright is our hearts bring us back to our true essence, our mystic heart. We move through the three layers of heart. We move through the breath, which a lot of us do in yoga. We do it in breath work, just bringing ourselves to prana, to
mm,
this life force energy, which is really important. That brings us, that really changes regulates the nervous system, can drop us in, change our brain waves, obviously from beta to theta and alpha. Then we drop into, from that place of stillness, into the emotional heart. So we start to listen to what the heart is holding. We start to
yeah,
understand why the heart feels it needs these walls to protect
mm,
it,
yeah,
and we work with what is being held there in a deep place. So when you spoke about dad and his messaging to you, there's a lot of shame attached to that. So that's a big
mhm,
shame wound that comes from, if I'm not perfect, if I'm not clever, if I
yeah,
don't prove myself, then I'm not lovable. And so we have, I'm not enough. And we also have a shame wound around the possibility of failing.
yeah,
But whatever it is in that emotional heart, we alchemize, and then we drop into the mystical heart, which is the spiritual heart, which is our soul energy. And
Mm.
that is our birthright. So, the journey is through the heart, and it's our, it's a step to take to meet yourself in wholeness, to just return to wholeness.
Yeah.
Because I will say, you're not broken, and I've said that before, and I'll say it again. And it's just the lifetime is here to teach us more about what we need to learn about as souls.
Yeah.
So what we alchemize in the emotional heart is so important for our soul DNA. So for our blueprint, for the life, the souls come into the lifetime to learn some lessons.
Mm.
And what are those lessons? And again, it's an adventure. Like, let's stay open to those lessons.
Yeah.
Let's, really stay curious.
Yeah.
And that's a really wonderful word as we move through this process. Actually, just stay open hearted, but really stay curious. If you can't stay open,
Be
start there.
curious. Yeah. Incredible.
Are you a well-being practitioner looking to grow your business online so that you can increase your income and create more impact? If so, I have a brand new masterclass for you in which I share the 3 key elements you need to focus on right away, right now to grow online, how I made my first £1,000 and how you can do that too with ease, the do's and don'ts for consistent growth and increased revenue month after month, the mistakes I made that you can learn from. Now, as a well-being practitioner who's built a community of over 400,000 people online, created dozens of courses and programs, a membership, and a sustainable income, I know what it takes to get there, and I want to show you how. The class is packed with value. It's going to leave you feeling inspired and ready to take action right away. The link is in the show notes. The class is free. Go watch it after this episode and take some notes. Now, let's get back to our episode.
One of the things talking about the heart that you talked about at the event was, which I thought was was impressive. You gave the example of this woman that had, an accident or needed a heart transplant, and she had the heart of this younger guy.
Yeah.
And that came back to her heart have memories. And all of a sudden she had different cravings, even as a nutritional therapist and trains and been doing well-being work for 10 years. I think I've never heard about it. And I thought it was so powerful. I'd love for you to share that with a little
Yeah.
bit more with my community, the fact that our hearts do have memories.
Yes. Yeah. So
Mm.
that's that wonderful story. That true story is in the book. And what science has now proven is actually, yes, that the heart has memory. This is the piece that I'm really, my mission is to bring into our understanding and our lives, is that the heart, is more than a pump. It has a whole intuition, it has a whole
Mm.
intelligence, and it's backed up by science now. So the heart sends more messages to the brain, and the brain sends to the heart. The heart has, it's something called neurocardiology, which is obviously, it's the study of the mind of the heart. So
Mm.
it's called the little heart, the little mind of the, but it's actually a mind of its own. It's not a little mind. It's part of we know about the gut. As a nutritionist, you'll know about the gut, but the heart is actually, it's the first organ, obviously, to grow in the body.
Mm.
And it holds memory, it sends thoughts, it has a whole thing happening,
Mm.
not just pumping blood, but this emotional, sort of sensory emotional experience too is happening all the time. So when there's a, people may have heard of people dying of heartbreak. That's a syndrome. You actually die of a broken heart.
Mm.
So imagine that, that's a reality. But with Heart Math, and they're an incredible institute, they've really taken up the mantle of neurocardiology in California, and they do amazing sort of science around, they do all of the science around the heart. But what they have found is, and that had been found out before, was that yes, the heart holds a memory, and with transplant we can see that now. So that story is a true story about a woman who, she received the heart of a 19-year-old who had died sadly in a motorcycle accident. And you're not allowed to know who the organ comes from.
Mm.
It has to be completely, obviously, the privacy of the family. But she started kind of getting these downloads, and she was having dreams and getting downloads, and noticed she was actually a dancer, but she noticed that her whole everything changed. She wanted to eat burgers, so it's like being a nutritionist, so being really aware of your food and your exercise, and she wanted to eat like greasy burgers, and she suddenly, wanted to chat up blonde curvy girls,
So crazy.
and all of her habits, and she had all of these different things happen. But then she also had some sort of downloads about the name of the person. She got the name of the person and looked it up, and found in the records the name of this young boy, this young man, and found his family, and her story is a beautiful story about the truth of the heart, how and it was such a massive. In the book she writes about, I realized that he was part of me.
Yeah.
His consciousness had merged with my consciousness, and she was actually okay with that. She was like, I'm so
Beautiful.
grateful to be holding this
Mm.
this young man's heart, because he saved my life, but also to have this connection with him in an interdimensional way, in an energetic way.
Yeah.
It's
So
really,
incredible.
yeah,
So, so powerful. Wow. Um, my beautiful community, a lot of women here are, you know, healers and coaches and well-being practitioners, and I work with some of them and I mentor them throughout their career, and I know that many of them struggle with owning their deepest desire,
yeah.
which is something I have experienced in the past as well. I guess, yeah, there's a sense of like holding back from what they truly want in life and in work, maybe thinking, oh, this is too much, I can't even go there.
Mhm.
So, what would you say to the woman who knows she wants more from her life, but she feels scared or unsure about fully owning and expressing that desire?
Well, one of the things I would say specifically for your audience, for this beautiful community, is that you're a beautiful community of, like I said earlier on in our conversation, of souls who are looking to be part of the change,
Mm,
and to help you. You're, whether you're healing through teaching Pilates, or healing on hands-on, or doing nutritional work. All of these pieces are pieces of healing.
mm,
And so what that means is that you're born empaths. You're born with whether you knew that earlier on or not, you're kind
mhm,
of born with something is imprinted in your soul, and this is part of your mission, this is part of your purpose. That nothing happens by chance. One of the things that happens to empaths who have experienced childhoods, or that within their families, or at school, or compounded by teachers or friends, when we've been told that we're too sensitive, we're too much, or we're not enough, you're not perfect enough unless, it really gets woven deeply into our tapestries. It does with everyone, but for us, because we are healers, it can be very easy to lose the wisdom of what it means to receive.
mhm, mm,
Right. And so our egos can kind of get wrapped up as well. There's something about, well, should I up my prices? Or,
that's a big one.
is it safe for me to want to uh, have I don't know, however many people on Instagram? Does that go against a sort of spiritual integrity or philosophy, or,
Mhm,
you know, or my values, my value system? What I'd say to you is your value system is so important, part of your authentic self.
mhm,
And authentic energy workers and healers and people who, want to love more, and be more engaged, and our moment in time together are so important. So yes, it's not necessarily about that alone, but it's about that too. Okay,
yeah,
so it's that thing of, it's not either or, but it's both.
both, yeah,
So we are born in this dimension. We are born with needs.
yeah,
So you have a child, you need to pay the bills. It's like
100%.
we have to sit here and I think that it's okay to gift yourself that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But always check in, but to be
Mm.
abundant. The bigger story, out of the day to day is expressing your wholeness is what your lifetime is about.
Yeah.
Okay. Your greatness. So stretching into your wild edges, asking, being more, but
Mm.
taking up space is what the lifetime is about and is what your journey is about because you've stepped onto a journey of self-awareness, of deeper knowing, of whatever that modality is, and so it's calling you home.
Yeah.
Your soul is vast,
Mm.
right? And remember that whatever it is that you're doing, there's someone on the planet that needs you now to be doing it
100%.
more.
Yeah. That's, I couldn't agree more. That's one of the first things I say to my mentees, when I mentor them in their business, like well-being practitioners. I always say, don't hide because it's bigger than you. There's someone somewhere that is waiting for you. You will save a life.
Yeah,
Go big, because sometimes again our ego comes in. I'm not ready to show up. Can I be on the podcast? Can I do this? Do I look good enough? Like blah blah blah, all these like beliefs and little things, where really the bigger picture, like you say, it's just bigger than that. We do work, we are of service. My work is of service, and you know it deserves good compensation. I personally really fully believe in that.
absolutely. And it's about your value, it's about your worth, and
Mm,
and finding ways to work with that practically. So when I started, for years and years, I would have a sliding scale. I would offer people unwaged or
mm,
low wage. I would offer sliding scale. I did work in a charity. I will be working in a charity again. It's also important for this work to get to as many people as possible. But that's
mm,
my choice,
yeah.
And then, but also it's, and if you have the time for that, you don't have to do that. But
Mm,
it's also where people can pay. We are in flow. So remember,
yeah.
flow is right exchange, is good
Mm,
exchange.
yeah.
You're not meant to be feeling resentful, burnt out, underpaid. All
Mm,
of those things are not good for you, and you
yeah.
deserve, and you definitely deserve more,
Yeah.
100%. And
100%.
I'll tell you a little story actually about that. That was a really powerful learning for me. Was just before pandemic, and I didn't have a website and I didn't have an Instagram account,
Mm,
and I was always word of mouth, and I liked it that way because for me I was like, I'd rather be, find me word of mouth, find me sort of, it's kind of difficult to find me, and I enjoyed that. Because remember, if you some people who believe in past lives, you may do, you may not, but when we've kind of come in with a certain understanding of energy, or we it's either like, if you believe in past lives, it's something you've done before,
mm,
or it's something that your soul just has as a mission,
mm,
right?
yeah.
Whatever your belief system is. But I definitely recognized that it within me was the wound of the healer, the healer who doesn't, being stepping up and above. You put yourself into the world and what
Mm,
could happen there,
yeah.
remember, as women as well, a lot of women who are listening to this, it's a feeling of what that means, how exposed we feel.
Hmm.
It's called a witch wound, actually.
Yeah. I
and
was
it, and
just
it
about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I write about that in my book.
Mm,
And it's, I definitely know that I have one of those, in the sense of, I know that I've done this work before. So I was never chasing the Instagram account, or
yeah.
but actually, Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow heard about me in LA, and they couldn't find me because I had no contact details. And
Mm,
eventually they sent someone over to London, and somehow they found me. And she came and found me, said, I can't believe I found you. Will you do this workshop? And then they said, well, what's your Insta handle and where's your website? And I was like, well, I don't have one. So that pushed me to do that. But what I realized in that moment was actually that my ego was getting in the way.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Spirit was saying, you need to be more accessible.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make that happen for you. You
Yeah.
need to get out of the way of yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe having a think about that today, whoever's listening. What is the one thing? Remember, sometimes the medicine is to do less, and sometimes the medicine is to do more. So if
Mm-hmm.
you find yourself chasing Instagram or chasing clients or chasing likes or come back into yourself and do less and
Yeah.
trust. Okay, so it's whatever the medicine is on the day, and sometimes the medicine is to do more, get
Mm-hmm.
out of the way of yourself and go large
Mm.
and trust.
Yeah. God, so many things I picked up from this. It's funny because just before we jumped on, I recorded an episode this morning, for the podcast. About I went viral on TikTok a few weeks ago. I'm not on TikTok, but I was explaining from a marketing point of view how important it is to have your website, if anything, your website and a mailing list where people that really want to know about you can come and find you. So
Yes.
I love that you share this because it's just a beautiful intro to the next week for them episode. And I think it's very important. The second thing is the Winchwood. I think is still very alive, as we can see. Cancel culture feeds into that. And again, I have been there before where I had a fear of being seen for who I really was, whether it was for my thoughts or what I believe in, and it is still alive right now. We can't share always freely everything we believe in without someone coming in. But I always go back to the bigger picture. What is
Yeah.
my purpose? What am I here to say? This is not about me. If this message needs to be heard, then so it is. So
Absolutely, Welly.
yeah,
And so it is.
and
Bring
that's
it
that.
through. Live as
Yeah.
ever. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so I love that you share that because someone is with such a big body work as yours and the experience you have to only have started a website 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, wow, there's a lesson to be learned in that in both ways, that when you do work that is powerful, of quality, the word of mouth will be the most powerful marketing tool. I really believe in that, even today.
Yeah.
And having a place where people can come and find you and support you
Yeah.
goes back to what you said earlier. We are open to receive as well. So just many lessons in that. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I have a couple of last questions for you. Do you believe that what we truly want, our soul desires, are divine assignments? And how do you start to trusting that what you want is really what is meant for you? And I know that will evolve. Like me personally, I think from the age of 8, I didn't know how. I was born in
Mm.
Togo in West Africa, but I knew that I was a dancer. Until today, I'm a dancer. I can't explain it. I don't know if it's like a performer thing, but I knew that I would do that. And there was been moments where, for me, there have been big catalysts, like my first dance class and seeing Michael Jackson and Janet in that dance video. Like, there have been moments where I knew it. I didn't know how. I was so far from TV, born in Togo, even though I was born in a fairly privileged family and went to incredible schools and things like that. That was far from my reality. My parents are super scholar. My dad is an architect. My mom is a pianist. Like, there wasn't much space for like, okay, you're gonna go on TV and like, what the hell? But I always say this to my friend. I was like, this was beyond me. It wasn't like a choice. It was like, this is what you're gonna do. And that's what I did for over 10 years. And I loved it until it wasn't that anymore.
Mm.
And it can be, it felt like an earthquake. I didn't even know if I ever fully recovered from that, because that's also when my gut health went start going tilt
Yeah.
really bad. But the retirement and moving into the well-being industry, which then also felt like, absolutely, I'm here to help other people, to moving into coaching, which now feels like this is it. Is this what I'd love to hear your thought on that? Like, is this divine assignment? Like, what is this? How does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what you've described there, we are in a divine assignment.
Mm.
We come to the planet, and we are divine and we're here having that human experience. And so each moment, each breath is, is looking to remind us of who we are. And so often these are steps along the way that take us to the grander divine assignment. So, but each assignment, the assignment can change in the sense of that assignment with the dancing was so strong, but part of the greater assignment, being a mother is an assignment, having a podcast is an assignment. Who knows how you will evolve and grow and what that assignment will be in 10 years. We may sit here again and you may say, wow, like my assignment just became so much more than I imagined it would, But we do get these nudges and these feelings. So I always knew, quite similarly, I always knew that I wanted to be a TV presenter. That was like, I want to do TV, I want to do radio. I was really, really clear about it. And when I went for that, at the time, it was just a million miles away from anything that I could really possibly grasp at, because being mixed race at the time, like there was really not many people of color on TV. Getting into the BBC was like getting into Fort Knox. You had to have gone to Oxford. You had to have done it. Like it was a whole hullabaloo. But I just put that very clearly. I was like, this is where I'm going. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
And the story's in the book, but I manifested that. And I went from being like the worst personal assistant known to man. I managed to get a job as a personal assistant, but then I kind of just made it happen. I became a travel presenter. I had an R&B and hip hop show on the BBC World Service, Radio 2. I wrote like pieces, music. I did like music journalism, but it was a part of my life. And I knew at that time that I didn't want to do this work. I was like, I'm not going into healing. I'm not going into, because I really just wanted to run a mile from this work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to live, but that was part of my divine assignment. Part of my divine assignment was, I did, at one point I was doing 3 travel shows at the same time, ITV, Discovery Channel, and it was just amazing. I get to go to all around the world, and it was just a gift from the universe. And I get this incredible access to different, whether it was going to like the most beautiful church or minaret, or being with an incredible tribe in Kenya, like just wherever I was, whatever I was doing. It was such a gift. It was a real adventure.
Yeah.
And that was an assignment at the time. It was like, if you look at your kind of record, if you look at your sort of Akashic record, it would say Estelle Bingham, and it would say she's going to do this and she needs to do this.
Yeah.
In order for her soul to move on and evolve, she needs to do this. I knew I needed to be a mother. And I was like, because becoming a mother is such a sort of, it's a real reckoning. Like we go right down to ground zero. And ground zero, you think you're X, Y, and Z. And then meanwhile, back at the ranch, you're not, right? You're kind of brought back to the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
And that our children are such massive teachers. They come in, those souls come in, they're like, we're here to remind you of some stuff.
My biggest trigger, I always say that.
Exactly. My son taught me so much about love. He taught me so much about love. I mean, he's just an incredible love gift, and it's our divine assignment. It's almost like it grows in waves, right?
Yeah.
It grows in waves.
Yeah.
And people come and see me every day and they're like, what is my purpose? I'm lost. And I say to them, bring them back really gently, go back into the heart, just stay with the heart, stay in practice with the heart, just like you would. It's just like a meditation.
Yeah.
You can meditate on the heart, in the heart, and the heart will bring you into a deeper, the ripples of what your assignment is there for you. It's like our low hanging fruit. But what I notice is that people can go off piste. They can go, they can go off and they can miss this path, which is why we need to go a little bit in to do some of that reprogramming of the unconscious, so that you just stay in flow. You stay on time. You're right on time. It's never too late. It starts right here, right now. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, this moment is enough. So it's just that really, and when we come in with that, we allow ourselves to be compassionate like that too. Compassion in our back pocket is a non-negotiable. It is. It's kind of like a master tool for our return, and to support our divine assignment.
Yeah, beautiful. I had no idea you were on TV. I don't think I got that. I got to that part in the book, because the part I got to is when you also share when you had your first downloads,
Mm.
with your parents, the hospital, like that would have been also a bit of a shock. No?
Yeah.
That would have been also a bit of a shock if especially you wanted to run away and travel and do all these things, but you start having those extra dimensional visions, how did it feel to you to have those and to be suddenly called into this work?
Yeah, I mean, my downloads, and again, when I speak to people, a lot of people when as children, we're super sensory, we're
Mm,
multi-sensory, we're picking up on things all the time. A lot of people speak about, oh, I used to really feel the trees, or I could feel
mm,
angels, or I could feel spirits, or I got words would come, or, whatever it is, people would feel things, we
mm.
feel more as children because we haven't closed down and barricaded our hearts,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
and I talk about in the book that at 7 I learned how to meditate.
Mm,
I learned a meditation practice, actually TM, transcendental meditation, but it's any meditation practice, but really meditating, I feel like sort of saved that part of me. It held
mm,
a part of me open,
yeah.
um, and sort of alchemizing, so that it kind of held a part of me open to my higher self, and
Mm,
and open to the downloads, or open to sort of feeling sort of angelic energies. Kind of, it saved me really,
yeah.
um, when it comes to my own story, and growing up in the trauma, and what I was gifted with ultimately,
Mm,
but what I alchemized in my lifetime, what I've alchemized from my story, that kind of it kept the window open rather than everything just closing in on us, which is we all get, what we do with trauma is we close down, we close in, we shut up shop. It's like, no, it's a minefield, we're not letting anyone in. That kept me
100%.
open.
Yeah.
um so with that, and obviously, and the gift of sort of, I suppose, of healing or second sight, or whatever you want to call it, runs in my female line. It does run down it's sort of in my mother's line. So again, I was lucky to not have it something that was demonized, or something that it was just,
Yeah.
oh, it's okay to feel trees, or it's okay to
Yeah.
sit and meditate, and kind of, it wasn't sort of squashed out of me as an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So on that level, I was on that in that way, I was lucky.
Yeah.
um
And
and I
supported, I guess.
Yeah, it was a form of support, because ultimately, also, when we think about, I always talk about the family and the light, and we are supported by our ancestors. We are supported by a team. There's a team around us, um, and so it's, if you can just ask that team to come in. And there's a chapter
Yeah.
in the book about, there's the ancestors chapter. It's a beautiful ritual to do,
Oh, I can't wait for
really
that.
powerful, really a massive activation to bring in your good ancestors, to heal your family lines, to do the work. Will really elevate. It's really such a gift that you give to your, both mother and female, both father
Mm,
and mother line, and your children too.
yeah.
Um,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
I
So
can't
so
wait
I
for that.
Yeah, you'll love that. So it's sort of, I kind of feel like I stepped into the work. It was always there, and then there was just a moment where I consciously said, okay, it's time. Actually, when I had my son,
Mm,
someone turned up, a few people started turning up on my doorstep, and I was like, they were like, oh, I've heard that you do, they sort of heard. I was actually in LA, and I cleared a house of energy, and then the word spread. And so, it kind of, I just surrendered. So there's a point where we just allow, and we surrender. We get out of the way of ourselves. There's always
yeah.
times along the road where we have to get out of the
Yes.
way of
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah.
100%. Oh, that's beautiful. Um, one thing you said about children, I think they are, because they've just transitioned into the quote unquote, I'm doing with this with my fingers, real world.
Mm.
They're still close to the other dimension. And I always heard that, but until I had my daughter, and I'm going to share something that some of my listeners might think is a bit spooky, but I was always told my grandfather was always with me
Mm.
by two channelers.
Yeah.
Um, And I never thought much about it, but when she was born, those first 6 months, I was never alone. And I know because she would look and I'll turn around and I'm like, there's someone here, clearly. And it gives me goosebumps.
Mm.
But I couldn't explain it. I could just feel it. But it wasn't scary. It was just like, we've got you. And sometimes she'll giggle and I'm like, what the actual hell is happening here? It
Mm.
was so potent, the energy in the room. It was
Yeah.
just, I was like, fuck,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah.
I felt like that a lot. So I definitely, I definitely join you back on that. And it's something I talked about Natalie, which, was my healer and, works with you as well. She told me that many times. She was like, you have to, when you need help, or reach out to your ancestors. And I'm always told her, I'm so scared, like I'm West African, we're really, really big in all of that. So I always want to tread carefully. But she's like, just, he's already there. Just, ask him. And but that's another topic for another time.
That's another topic. I'd so love to talk about that, because I'd
Yeah.
so love to talk about that experience of being West African and what it means
Mm-hmm.
to, even with this work, like how to kind of allow the work to land,
Yeah.
that sort of allow it in, and what that means. And the idea of treading carefully, I think, is really important too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why bringing your heart, like activating your heart energy, which is this takes us to really to the sort of, to spirit. It takes us to God.
Yeah.
It takes us to the absolute, whatever that is for you, to the universe.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but it really is a light source
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful place to ground and call in this work, like to call
Yeah.
in the rest of you from
Yes.
this place, protects you
Yeah.
with work, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. 100%. It does. It does. I always go back to the higher energy, to God. Always protects me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. Estelle, I could talk to you for another hour. But
Oh, me too.
I'm mindful and respectful of your time, of your energy. Thank you so much, first of all, for being here and for this beautiful body of work. I can't wait to get deeper into it, to finish it. I can't wait for my friends, my listeners, everybody in my community to read it. It's truly a beautiful work. Your work is beautiful. And I know this is going to be life-changing. So everybody go get Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth by Estelle Bingham. And it's everywhere, I guess. It's available everywhere.
Everywhere, Amazon, Waterstones,
Yeah,
those
where you
places.
can find books. Yeah.
No, you can find
Is
books.
it available in America? Because I have a fairly big
It is Barnes and
US.
Noble. It's Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
It's Amazon. It's America. So this is an international release, and yeah, absolutely. If you're in the US, planning to come in the summer, go out and get your copy. I love you to be part of this movement of what it means to live in the heart, our sort of our sacred revolution
Yeah.
in these crazy times. That we can live differently, and we can vision differently,
Yeah.
and we can meet our God differently, but as one, because ultimately we're all in this together.
We are. Amen.
And I really appreciate being here with you, Welly. It's been
Thank you.
such a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed and feel inspired by this beautiful episode. If you are, please leave a 5-star review. Go and check out the book. I'll put a link. You can check out Estelle's website. She also offers one-to-one practitioner courses, just a lot of beautiful resources on her website. I am so grateful for you. Always, always am. And I will see you in the next episode.